Hello, Tom Lavecchia here with the latest edition of the New Theory podcast. Today, we have a very, very special guest. His name is Nick Collins. He's an Addy award-winning web and mobile application creator. I'm going to ask him about that because I'm a huge Addy fan. He's very well respected in digital media. We spoke on various topics, both regionally and internationally. And his company is Satoris Digital. They're a full-service digital media agency that helps businesses make the transition from the digital world and boost their online visibility and, more importantly, in my opinion, revenue. Nick, welcome to the New Theory podcast. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great, Tom. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. So we're going to jump right in. Okay, so you're a digital owner of a digital media company. How did you get into the space first? There's a lot of people that kind of like have their career and they're thinking, I want to do SEO, or they kind of want to get more into digital media marketing. How did you initially get into the space?
So initially, I got into the whole, I guess you call it, the internet space. This is back in mid '90s, so we're talking like '94, '95.
Yep.
The World Wide Web was still very much in its infancy. But, I remember looking at it as a young teenager going, hey, yeah, this stuff is pretty cool looking. I can see a big future in this.
Yeah.
And this is back when, like the animated GIFs of hula girls were like, the mark of like really high class design, right?
Yep.
So, but you can see the potential, right? You can see, hey, look at where, books are, to where they've come, and this is just like a digital book. You can do video and all kind of stuff. They're just starting to get into that. Of course, back then, I think like was a Real Player was like really the only major player in the game.
Yep.
But you can just see that people are starting to kind of make inroads into different areas and starting to experiment. And it was really exciting seeing where it could go.
Yeah.
So I got started, initially just kind of doing some web pages. This back, like I said, in the mid '90s. So Notepad was our development environment of choice.
Oh, wow.
And because there wasn't anything else really available. Everything was hand coded. There wasn't really any editors and builders like we have today. WordPress wasn't even a conceived of notion at that point. I don't think we didn't have style sheets or any of these niceties that we have today.
Correct.
That really make developing websites to be as capable as they are.
Yeah.
But there was a particular technology that I got a hold of a beta copy of. It was called Future Splash Animator.
Okay.
If you know your history, Future Splash Animator got bought by a company called Macromedia and renamed into something called Flash.
Yeah.
So I got started on it, pre-Flash, with a beta copy of it. But I could see like the direction that was headed had so much promise and so much potential. It's like, this is going to be awesome. And so I kind of dove headfirst into it. And it's kind of funny because I actually started my first web design business, if you will, when I was like 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
I started building some websites because I thought it was cool, thought it was fun. Got a couple people to actually pay me a little bit of money to do it. I was like, hey, maybe I'll do this as a side business. Some kids have paper routes. I'll do this. And, of course, as a 14-year-old in the mid '90s, we didn't have cell phones or anything back then. And so I used the only phone number I had available to me, which was our house phone or our landline. And so my parents started getting these phone calls. So I was posting messages and ads on like bulletin boards and stuff like that. Saying, hey, I can build a website for you. Give me a call. And my parents started getting these calls, of people calling us, this fictional company name I'd come up with. And they're like, no, there's no one here. I was like, wait, that's me. Give me the phone.
That's funny.
But, that's how I got started at the very beginning there.
This is semi-random, but I attended a talk one time, kind of like a quasi TED type talk, and it was the founder of Adobe, which was eventually on Flash, and he described the conversation when Steve Jobs called him and said Apple's not going to support Flash, and obviously that essentially crashed Flash's business. And Adobe still's around, and they have other stuff, but I just thought that was interesting. So, okay, so you had a penchant, you got in early, you started doing websites. Kind of fast forward, I noticed that you're some of our agency do like SEO, you're a little bit heavier in the tech than we are. Give us kind of, typically people one or the other, right? Do they kind of an SEO marketing firm or they're a tech firm? It seems like you're more of a more tech firm, they call it. So give us why you kind of have your hands in both, and give us why, your philosophy on SEO, and give us a little bit of philosophy why you still do some app development.
Sure. So we started off more tech focused.
Yeah.
Well, technically we started off more design focused. So, in the very beginning, it was very much design. It was, doing a bunch of like Flash websites, things like that. It was very, very heavy on the aesthetics.
Yeah.
And as the technologies became more capable, things like ActionScript for Flash,
Yes.
JavaScript started coming out and being able to actually do some useful things other than making a button blink or just crazy stuff like that. As that started to mature, then we got more and more into the technology side of things.
Yeah.
Eventually getting into enterprise application development, which more and more of it was becoming web-based, as companies were getting away from the traditional like client server type of model where you'd have to download some software that runs on your computer and it was connected to some server software, and it was more and more becoming web-based so they could load it up on any device they had available to them and be able to access it. And so we ended up getting involved in that. I did a bunch of stuff for companies like AT&T, Northern Trust Bank, a lot of big enterprise companies were starting to make this transition, and so we got pretty heavy into that. But then as I started looking at things as we were going into the pandemic, then I was like, this isn't like a field of dreams, right? This is where they say if you build it, they will come, right? Just building software, building these tools for people, it didn't help them in adoption, right? You can have the best tool in the world, but if people don't know about it, it doesn't exist.
That's right.
And so we started leaning more heavily into, okay, well, these clients, they already know us, they already trust us. We have the skill set, it's just not what they really advertised a whole lot, So let's go ahead and start offering these to our clients. Say, okay, we'll build the software, but then we'll build the website, the landing page that markets the software. Then we'll also do the SEO and the digital marketing so people know about your software. And so it wasn't just hey, we're going to build this software for you and then we're going to leave.
Yeah.
No, it's like, we're going to build it for you and then we're going to bring your customers to you to use it. And there's a lot of value in that to our customers. And so, that portion of our business, started to grow, and we started getting more and more into that to where now that's, a big part of the business that we do. It's a full end-to-end, it's a full service marketing. We'll build the actual product and then we'll market the product for you.
Now, I like that, how you have that kind of, what is it? The kind of horizontal integration, if you will. We'll build you the app, we'll optimize it, we'll get eyes on it, get people to download it. I like how you went that way instead of just continue to make more apps, right? Now, do you have a requirement where you only market the apps that you build, or vice versa? You only do SEO for apps that or it's opposite. I'm sorry. Do you only do apps that you're going to do SEO for? Like, what do you have requirements, or are you pretty flexible in that?
No, there's no requirement about that. It's simply a value add.
Got it.
It's very much like back in the day when we first got started, we were doing a lot of work for print design houses as subcontractors, because you'd get like a company that they were very, very good at like doing magazine layouts and print ads and billboards and this traditional media. But then they'd have one of their clients come to them and say, well, hey, you've done all these other things for us. Can you do our website for us? And while they might be able to actually like put together some kind of comp for them, they had no idea how to build a thing. And so we would come in, they'd kind of subcontract to us to build the website out for them so they could kind of continue to offer those services to their clients and keep the client, rather than the client going to another firm that maybe did offer all the services and might take the whole business away.
So you do white label. You do white label services?
We do, yes.
Interesting.
And so, we did a lot of that for print companies, early on. And now, we don't necessarily compete with the print companies. We kind of work with them, but we don't do a lot of print work. Everything we do is pretty much digital. Even the video work that we do is digital video. being distributed on Facebook or YouTube or that kind of thing. And so, we really don't do a lot with the physical medium. Although those capabilities are certainly there. It's just, we don't have a big market for it in our business.
Okay. Now, I'd like to talk some details if it's okay, because I'm listening as a fellow agency owner, and I'm hearing we have tech. So whether you have an app, guy who writes in Swift, you might have a separate, kind of Android, Samsung guy. So you need like developers, right? Now you're like, wow, we're going to do SEO. So I'm assuming you have copywriters. You may need an SEO specialist, maybe a social media specialist. How did you scale, right? Give me like kind of some of the key components. How did you scale? And of what you're comfortable sharing, what did you insource or what did you outsource for your team?
Sure. So when I first started scaling, so back up a little bit, like most entrepreneurs, when I first started, it was just me.
Yeah.
Right. And like most entrepreneurs, I overworked myself because I was trying to keep control of everything, and delegating was not my strong suit.
Yeah.
It's hard to hand over your baby to somebody you don't know, right?
Yep.
Even if you're hiring somebody, you don't really know them, so it's hard to trust them with your baby. So I had a really tough time with that, but I reached a point where I had a bit of a health crisis that resulted from that, and it kind of forced me to have to start looking outward.
Wow. Okay.
I was like, okay, well, how can I do this? Because business was still very much, feast or famine.
Yeah.
It's like you would come in and you get, 4 or 5 big projects, and then that would last for 5 or 6 months, and then they would fizzle out, and it would be 3 or 4 months before you got the next wave of them.
Correct.
So it's like, okay, well, it's really hard to hire somebody on full time where you're responsible for their livelihood, for their family, etc. When your income is like this, right? So I was like, okay, well, what can I learn? What examples can I follow that would help with this? And the one that immediately jumped to my mind was when I worked for a large advertising agency in Detroit. They had a model where they had multiple different small teams that were assigned to different clients, or even different sub clients within their clients.
Yeah.
Each of those small teams consolidated of a creative director, an art director, and a copywriter. Okay. And then so there was a very small team that was dedicated to that project, to that vertical.
Yeah.
But then they had a pool of us that they called the studio. That studio, there was probably 50 or 60 people in that studio. They're all independent contractors. And basically, we were just like sitting around, and they'd say, okay, well, we need someone to do some banner ads. We need someone to do this landing page. We need someone to do this. They would pull resources from that studio, from this pool of resources that they all shared. And I was like, okay, well, that's a really great model, because that allows you to be able to scale up and down almost instantly.
Pretty quickly, yeah.
And so what I ended up doing is I found a couple other firms who were similar to mine. And I said, hey, what do you think of this idea? We're all in very different geographic markets, so we don't compete against any of each other. But the kind of work we do, you could be located anywhere in the world. It really doesn't matter.
Correct.
And so I said, what do you think about this idea of, let's put together a pool of resources? Let's start with like 5 or 10 people, different disciplines, and then we can all pull from them as we need to. But that way, that person can have a full 40-hour work week, 50-hour work week, whatever.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't all be coming out of one person's pocket.
Yeah.
And I found a couple of companies that was like, hey, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And so we kind of put together this shared pool of resources that allowed all of us to be able to kind of scale up and down as our project load ebbed and flowed. And eventually got to the point where we had about 70 contractors that we were keeping busy full time.
Wow.
Just by following that model, and it worked really, really well.
Contractors, Nick, were the contractors in the same entity, or did one person manage a contract on behalf of a few companies? Well, look, it's funny. I tried to do a similar thing, but failed at it. Well, how did you manage that? So you have 70 contractors. How did you manage that?
Basically, because it wasn't necessarily a partnership, but it was, kind of a group that we formed that the people were reporting to that group, and basically, whoever's project you were doing the work on, we'd have them log their time in, and then whoever's project was getting time logged against it, they would send them the check for that work.
Got it.
And so
Interesting.
by doing that way, it kept things very, very flexible. We weren't tightly coupled with one another. So there was nothing that really necessarily bound us to each other legally, where we could get into any kind of like conflicts of interest or things of that nature. It was literally, hey, if we work together, we can keep these resources busy so that they don't go elsewhere. But that way, when we need,
Roughly how many companies did you do this with in your partnership on the side of, hey, we're going to use these guys and gals?
Hmm?
How many people were on your team that use these people roughly?
So it was initially just one other company, and then we ended up adding two others over time.
That's brilliant. Now, did you have a minimum? Like, so for example, with the other, let's say 4 of you guys and gals, did you have a minimum commitment that you had to give every month, or if you had no work, you had no work? How did that work?
No, there was no minimum commitment. It was that if you had no work, you had no work. And the whole idea behind the concept was that it allowed instant scalability either up or down. Because in our business, you all know that you can get contracts and contracts get canceled.
Yep.
And so and unfortunately, we saw a lot of that, especially going into that as the pandemic started. A lot of us had huge contracts, lots of billable hours are all set up, and then it all went away virtually overnight.
Yeah.
As companies got shut down, as their income streams were cut off. So the model ended up serving us well. And of course, we felt bad for those contractors when all of a sudden it's like none of us had any work for them, or at least not even enough to keep them busy full time. And unfortunately, that kind of consortium ended up dissolving over the course of the pandemic just because of the nature of how things were. But for 8 years, that concept was working really, really well for us.
No, but allowed you again. So like, people watching, I don't know whether you scaled already and you're like, wow, that's brilliant. I should have did that. Or people that are trying to scale, or people that failed at scaling. Scaling is not easy, right? And over those 8 years, right, whether protected margin or you didn't overwaste money, that helped you gain your money, be more, company be more prosperous over 8 years by having more money in the bank. And you as an entrepreneur know, not more money in the bank just means, well, I can get another Maserati or this, or that. No, you got to feed your money back into the business, especially when you're more tech. You might have different designers you need, different technology and resources. So I love that aspect. So how did you land? So like, okay, so now that we're hopefully getting out of this pandemic, how do you plan on scaling now? Similar pool, or how do you plan to do it in 2022?
So I do have a similar pool that I do have put together. However, right now it's just me and a friend of mine who's doing some other stuff. Again, in a different market. I'm Midwest, he's East Coast, so we don't step on each other too much, even though we're both dealing with national brands in a lot of cases. Headquarters are different locations, so it's not even a huge issue. And hopefully over the next few years, hopefully we'll be able to scale it back up to kind of where it was pre-pandemic.
Nice.
But one of the other advantages to that model, and especially on the tech side of things, is it took away a lot of the fear about taking on a big project, right? So give you an idea, this was back in 2015, I think, 2014, 2015. I ended up having one of my clients I've been doing work call me in saying, hey, we've got a project here. We're a little concerned about whether you're able to take it on. Are you confident you could do a project this size? It was going to be like a 4-year project, end up being a multi-7-figure project just for that one project. But they were like, hey, this is going to be a lot of work. Do you have the capabilities? By having that pool that I already knew was already readily available, I was able to say, yeah, no problem, with complete confidence. Right?
Wow.
So there was no worry about, well, gee, am I going to be able to find the resources? Am I going to be able to find people with the right skill set? And am I going to be able to scale up quickly enough? Because this project starts in like a month. am I going to be able to do this? There was none of that because I already had the resources ready and available. It was literally, okay, sign the contract, go pick up the phone call, say, hey, okay, I need you. Right?
Got it.
Done.
Got it. Now, makes sense. Okay, so I want to kind of migrate a little bit before we wrap it up. I as in my agency, just we started out as an SEO company, and for those search engine optimization, organic, and I would actually do talks, and it was like a proud peacock how you don't need paid and how you don't need earned media, and we were like the organic guys. And just over time, with just the algorithm changes, attention arbitrage going over to social, going over to paid social, going over to paid media, um, clients having an appetite for PR, then earned media and paid media became very important. So now we made it a point to become full service and be specialists in each, right? So owned, earned, and paid, right? And if
The only constant is change, right?
yeah, exactly, fair as well. Are you guys doing some paid media, PPC, and that kind of stuff, and ads, and earn media, maybe a little online PR, or do you outsource that? Give us where earned and paid media come into the mix for you.
So we do a lot of the earned and paid media.
Okay.
Not so much on the PR side,
Yeah.
just because that's not something that we have the skills for in house, and honestly, it's not something I'm not really sure it's something I want to get into.
Yeah. Tricky anyway.
Yeah, it's one of those things that PR can be an endless bucket to dump your money into.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult to connect. Okay, we did this podcast or we did this event here, this article, and connect that directly to this revenue resulted from that. Right? It's very much a black box where you can just dump a bunch of money into it, and you may get a lot of earnings realized from it. You may not. You have no idea.
Yeah.
And so that's not. We always want to go into services where when we tell our customers that we can deliver X for them, we know we can deliver it. That it's never going to be a black box. That's never going to be an unknown. We want there to be a degree of certainty. So even on the paid ads and things like that, you can never truly guarantee it, but you can make really educated guesses, right?
Yes.
So, it's kind of like the difference between playing the lottery versus, maybe doing the stock market. The stock market, you can make educated guesses based on trends and things like that. Whereas lottery, it's a spray and pray, and you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah. No,
so
I'm not going to cut you off, Nick, but we do some earned media. I like doing it as a principal. I just like doing it. If I have the bandwidth, I take it on. I hate to give away the secret. I use it as a way to really get backlinks. To be honest with you, because rather than like pay for backlinks or really kind of block and tackle on backlinks, I'll work to get us like a pretty good PR hit. I know a lot of it's no follow.
Sure.
I don't mean all technical. I know Nick knows this. We got all technical, but I'm a big backlink guy. So I'll do some PR with kind of the Trojan horse to get backlinks. That's really, really why I do it, to be honest with you.
Again, backlinks are trackable, so then you can actually measure the results.
Correct. Exactly. So I'll call it fancy backlinking, right? Or high-end backlinking. But what I wanted to ask you was, and did you want to finish that thought on the page because you were about to finish up, or were you good to go on that?
No, go ahead. I'm good to go on that.
Got it. Sorry, because I'm a little ADD sometimes.
My
last question on the business topics are where you're laying your bet. So obviously, you and I are both Google guys. You're going to build a great website. It's going to be optimized. But what other platforms are you really doubling down for your clients? You encourage them to be on. Like right now, I'm doing a lot more on YouTube. I kind of stepped away a little bit from Facebook. For me personally, I'm pretty big on YouTube and TikTok. A little bit of IG Reels. Stepping away from not using as much LinkedIn and not using much Facebook. Where are you kind of placing your bets for your customers right now?
Right now, it really depends on the customer, right? So there's some customers that are very much B2B focused, and for them, Facebook's not really the place, and TikTok definitely not. Whereas, like we had one client we were talking to, we were working with that, their business was in doing kind of like I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. Basically, it's kind of like a Korean hip hop type of clothing line type of deal, you know. Well, for them, TikTok was like fertile ground, whereas Facebook, even the demographics are a little aged for their target demographic. So it really kind of depends on the customer and who their target market is. And that's actually really it really speaks to the core of one of our core principles as a company, in even our name, Sartoris. Sartoris is actually the Latin for the word tailor, right?
Oh, wow.
Everything we do is custom tailored to the needs of the specific client. There's no one size fits all. There's no templated options. Everything starts off with a deep dive interview of the client, finding out what their needs are, what their niche is, who their demographics are. In the cases where they don't know, being able to try to determine that based on what they do know. And we're digging deep to where we know their business almost as well as they do. And then we tailor our solutions to them. Even when we were doing the software, we were like, what? Having software that gets purchased, and I saw this countless times working in consulting, you get this big company that would buy this $10 million, $50 million software package. Like Siebel and SAP were two of the biggest offenders in my book.
Yep.
They get some VP to buy their product, this huge investment. And then that VP would go to the IT folks, would go to the business folks, say, hey, we just bought this, figure out how we can use it to make things better. And so they end up retooling their entire business. They end up bending over backwards of their entire business to fit this software package they bought.
Yep, I remember.
And I'm just like, that is completely backwards.
Yep.
And so you know what? I think we can do better. I'm going to start a company, and we're going to go the other way around. We're going to look at your business. We're going to learn your business, and then we'll build the software to fit your business in the way that you work. We'll build the software to enhance the strengths and the uniqueness of your business, rather than forcing you to change your business to fit the software and then be just like everybody else who's using that software.
I love it. You know what, Nick? You're refreshing because I once attended an SEO conference once, my first one, and at the time we're boutique. We don't have a lot of clients. We're on the boutique side. We like to be quality over quantity, ideally, and we lost our first client. And I have a sales background, so like this, even as an agency owner or even a salesperson or both, you lose a client, it's like a big deal, right? And I was really down.
Yeah.
And I was really upset. And they're kind of the water cooler talk between. I think we went to one of those conversion conferences where we're doing on-site optimization and conversion optimization, and a bunch of guys sitting around and like they're kind of laughing at me. Oh, you lost your first client. You don't know the secret. What secret? A guy pulls me aside. He's like, SEO. Here's a game. You have 6 months to do your job, and he's like, the whole goal is to add more clients than you lose. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. If you know you're gonna lose one, just add 2 more on and wash, rinse, and repeat. And it bothered me to this day. That's why I bring it up. I'm like, no, that's not how I want to operate. Now, you're going to lose. I think the churn rate for SEO clients is like 20% per year. PR clients are actually higher, so you're smart for not being in PR. I think it's closer to 30, 40%. And I always say SEO is the only thing you get fired for doing your job, right? Because what happens is you get them to the top, they start making money, and then they think it's them, and then they leave, and then it goes down. And then they come back and it's too late. So it's harder to get you back than it is to get initial, as you know that. So Nick, this was great. I'm going to put your link to Sartoris below. I'll give you the final parting words. Feel free to share what you want to share. And how can we find you? For those listening on iTunes and stuff.
Sure. So you can find us at Sartoris Digital. It's Sartoris. For those of you who don't speak Latin. So, that's a great place to start. You can contact us. We got, like everybody else, we got a form on there where it makes it really easy to reach out to us. Let us know what you're interested in and how we can help. But, if you're looking for somebody who is going to really learn your business and, tailor their solutions to you, then, we're the people to help you.
I love it. Nick, I really appreciate you being on, and thank you for being on the New Theory podcast.